Recording. Okay, all right. So welcome everybody to the first week and Thursday, which is the second day of COM350. And the basic structure of the class is going to be, Tuesday we'll cover the book. On Thursday we'll have a guest speaker. This week I will be the guest speaker. I'm not really a guest, but I'm going to be the speaker. So what I'm going to do is go over a little bit of my background. And part of the background that I'm going to share with you is some of the things that I've been involved in and currently involved in. And I'm going to also make this offer to any of you. If any of this stuff is interesting to you, and it's not a requirement, you're more than welcome to join. And if you're interested in actually joining, I can use some extra credit points, for your getting involved. And as I go through the presentation, you'll kind of get an idea as to what I'm talking about. Because a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, in this broadband world is built upon, using a lot of the tools communicate to community. So the best way that we've been trying to keep people informed of what's going on with some of this broadband stuff is to leverage things like Zoom calls and email groups and social media and all this other stuff. So there's going to be some opportunity for any of you to participate or join in one of the WHOI calls, and I can I'll give you some extra credit points if you are inclined to check that out. So with that, let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this is all going to work out. I think I worked out some of the bugs that I ran into on Tuesday, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a little smoother than Tuesday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this presentation I created on. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. This is on Google presentation. So let's see. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Okay. Let me go ahead and find it. Oops. Oh, here we go. Okay, can you guys see the slide? It says computer mediated communications. Yep, okay. And I'm going to go to full screen here. Okay, so this is my slide presentation. I'm going to kind of give you a little sense of the work that I do, just to give you a sense of context. So again, this is COM350. We're going to cover a bunch of material, but I think you'll enjoy some of the speakers that I've asked to join us. But here's kind of where a lot of that came from. So I do a radio show, and it's on Hawaii Public Radio, and it airs every Friday. It used to be every Wednesday, but it airs every Friday. And I cover a whole bunch of topics, primarily in the tech and innovation space. And I share this because I've been doing this for the last, come this past month, August, has been 17 years. And some of you might have, maybe a few of you were like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years old when I started this. So this has been going on for quite a while. I've been pretty much following the tech scene in Hawaii, and so the content that I have accumulated and amassed was all about how Hawaii is in this tech sector. And a couple people, suggested, hey, you should get some of these recordings transcribed and, create a kind of a repository and create kind of an AI model that, or like a GPT that, contains all this stuff that you've created and accumulated. So that's something that I'm kind of thinking about. But we're already up to like episode, I think 888. So this is a episode from last year when I first taught this class, and we're up to 888. Okay, so that's one thing, and from kind of like a standpoint of, if you folks are so inclined, if you're interested, you might want to check it out, and then if you want to kind of like write something about it or provide some feedback, that could be a potential kind of extra credit. Okay, another thing that is happening, and this is something that we started back in, I think it was like 2015 or 2016. So 2016, and if you count 16, 17, 18, all the way to 2025, this Hawaii Annual Code Challenge has been going on for 10 years. So this year will be the 10th year. And this is something that was started because at the time, Governor Ige was interested in innovation and getting community involved with some of the tech things that were going on, and said, asked if I could help create a code challenge. And basically, this was a hackathon. So it's but we call it a code challenge. So it's a hackathon that happens typically around the October, November timeframe. And it spans maybe about, 4-5 weeks. It's not like a full-time thing for those 5 weeks, but there's like a kickoff weekend. There's classes and workshops over the course of the 4 weeks, and then there's a there's a goal to actually create like a prototype. And so once people have gone through the workshops and gone through the classes, they can then come up with a prototype, and then on the last weekend there's a pitch for their prototype. So you do a kind of like a demonstration, and then there's some judges, and there's a selection of who has won that particular kind of like pitch contest. So that's another activity that is community oriented and involves people who are interested in what's going on inside government, and maybe if they have some ideas on coming up with some solutions, it's a good way to kind of get involved and get engaged. And so I put that out to you as another opportunity to think about, if you wanted to check it out, if you wanted to be maybe even so ambitious that you wanted to come and listen to the kickoff and pull a team together, that is also definitely an extra credit kind of activity. Now you might think, oh, I'm not a coder, or you're not into the prototyping of stuff, but you could also get involved from a communication standpoint. So maybe there's some ideas that you wanted to present or test. That could be something that would warrant like a team and maybe a presentation. So if you wanted to do that, that's available. Now these dates are for 2024. if you're interested in checking out some of the 2025 dates, you can go to hacc.hawaii.gov, and the new dates are posted there. And then if anyone is interested, feel free to email me, and I can definitely connect you up. But that's another potential project for some extra credit, and something that I've been involved in from the very beginning. Okay, so the broadband HUI. This is something that I helped start. So I think I mentioned it last week that I got into the state government in 2018 as the broadband strategy officer, and one of the things that we were kind of tasked with is looking at building some infrastructure, but that was somewhat dependent on whether we could get some money from the state legislature. In 2018, 2019, 2020, we were not successful at getting funds from our state legislature. So we were, determined to continue on and keep trying to see if we could, get some funding. But as you all know, in March of 2020, the pandemic kind of took full kind of attention, and the thing that really affected everybody was that Governor Ige did a stay-at-home order. So that stay-at-home order was basically telling everybody you could not go into work, you could not go into school. You had to basically stay at home and be isolated. So that took place in March of 2020. And so, I was thinking, boy, there's probably a lot of people thinking, what's going to happen if we're sort of, sequestered at home? And what are some of the things that are going to get sort of impacted if we are in this condition and situation? So what was clear at the time was that if you didn't have an internet connection at home, then it was very hard to get information to you. So one of the things that came about kind of quickly after that stay-at-home order was that both Hawaiian Tel and Charter came out with a free internet for like 3 months. So I thought, well, what's the best way of trying to help get that word out? And then what I did was I called my sort of like kind of key stakeholders that were involved with helping to get some money from the legislature to let's hui up and talk about what are some of the resources that are coming to bear, and how do we address the issues that people are encountering, in their communities. So the whole objective was, and we match the resources with the challenges that are being faced in the community. So in March of 2020, I convened a gathering, and we call it the Broadband Hui. And at the time, I had committed, to meet weekly until we solve the digital divide. Now, we're probably at 254 convenings of the Broadband Hui. So I'll fast forward you over the course of those 250 meetings. When we first started, we wanted to find like, what is our North Star? What is it that's going to kind of guide us as we get together and talk about stuff? So we kind of spent some time, thinking about what is the main kind of purpose, and what is it that we're trying to do. I talk about closing the digital divide, but what does that mean? Does that mean just connecting somebody to the internet, or does that mean helping people, understand the technology so they can fully utilize that technology? And we came upon, this idea of something called digital equity. And if you go to broadbandhui.org, that is where we actually have kind of archived our digital equity declaration. This was something that we did back in, I think it was like late 2020, and it helped to inform what it is that we do. It helped to kind of let the legislature know why this is important, and it helped in 2021 some legislative decisions that were made. Now, we never did get any money, but there were a bunch of things like resolutions and other bills that helped to start bringing some attention to the, what I call the digital divide. And this was because, we kind of pulled people together and got them on the sort of the same page as to what's happening, in this whole broadband and digital equity arena. I bring this to your attention because this is kind of a key example of how this computer-mediated communications is used, and how I used it, to not only build an awareness, but to build capacity, to educate, and to help people network with others that are in this space, to help address the issue of the digital divide. So again, the Broadband Hui is an example of what it is that we've been doing to bring community into the kind of discussion about what's happening with the digital divide, what's happening with the funding and the programs that the government is coming out with that's going to help us better leverage this technology, whether it be the internet or computing or now such a hot topic is AI. So again, the Broadband Hui, we don't meet every week now because it was pretty daunting to do it every week. So we meet on the first and third Wednesdays of each month. And again, if any of you are interested in checking it out, I would highly encourage you to do so. Next Wednesday is the 3rd, and we'll be talking about something called the BEAD program, which is Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, and it's a federal program. It just happens that the BEAD program has just as of yesterday issued their final proposal, which is basically going to help build fiber to the home. Okay, and so there's a lot of effort going on. Hawaiian Tel is probably at the crosshairs of getting fiber to the home, and this final proposal is federal monies that will help to further that. So the final proposal was issued yesterday, late in the afternoon, and the this public comment period is open for 1 week, so it's a very short turnaround. I wanted to make sure that the communities that I'm in know about it, and if they're so inclined to respond to this final proposal, they can do so. So on the Hui call, we'll talk about the final proposal, but understandably, it's due. The response is due that day. Okay, so it's unrealistic to expect a lot of people that just hear about it next Wednesday to respond. But I did mail it out to all the people that are part of the Hui. We have more than 400 people, so hopefully they have an opportunity to take a look at it and maybe make a response before next week Wednesday. But and of course, any of you who are interested, once I'm done with this, this presentation, I'll drop the link in the chat, and then you guys can take a look at it. But I do bring it to your attention that if you are interested, next week's Hui call, which is on the 3rd, would be a good one to attend. And then the one that's right after that, which is going to be September 17th, the folks over at UH who are kind of running this particular program will go into a little bit more detail and talk about what the program is and what it entails, and what does this mean for Hawaii. But again, by the time the 17th rolls around, the public comment period is closed already. Yeah, so that's why these next couple of broadband Hui meetings, if you're interested, there's a lot of good information that we'll go ahead and share with you. So that's another opportunity for some kind of like extra credit work if you guys are interested in checking that out. Okay, so that's the broadband Hui. Okay, so this is the office that I reside in. It's called the Hawaii Broadband Office, and this office is currently in the Department of Accounting and General Services. So we kind of recently moved from the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism and moved over to DAGS, which is Department of Accounting and General Services. And that's more of a kind of a reason for doing that was because as broadband infrastructure becomes something that needs to be monitored and measured, it would be probably better to do it from DAGS than it would be from DBIT. But anyway, that's kind of getting into the weeds. One of the key things that I wanted to showcase on this particular slide is that going back to my mention of the digital equity declaration, and we did, as a result of some federal money, produce something called the Digital Equity Plan. And within the Digital Equity Plan, we kind of recognize these 5 pillars that are key. The first one is obviously internet access. So it's got to be accessible, it's got to be affordable, it's got to be reliable. The next one is the kind of digital literacy skills. Do you have the skill to know how to run a computer? Do you know how to access the internet? Do you have an email address? There's some real basic things that surprisingly, a lot of people don't have. And so from an equity standpoint, how do we make sure that as many people in Hawaii have these sort of literacy foundation so that they can use this technology as, we obviously are all moving very quickly into this 21st century and the digital economy. Okay, so that's digital literacy skills. Another one is devices. Do people actually have devices? We've actually had digital literacy classes where people would come to the class and they're very interested in learning about stuff, but they don't have a computer. So, they might learn something in class, but there's no way to reinforce that learning when they go home. So part of the program is to try to get devices into people's hands. And so there was, we were prepared to do a bunch of projects in these categories. But unfortunately, the federal government terminated our digital equity, what we call the digital equity capacity grant. And as you probably heard of all the different programs that have been kind of terminated because the DEI or the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are viewed upon by this administration as being kind of racist and unconstitutional. In fact, that's the words that they use right before terminating the program. There is no federal money, I guess, for these particular key elements or pillars that we had identified. But that's beside the point. The point is that these are still important. We still try to emphasize, how important these are for many of our members of the community, and that we are continuing to be committed to making sure that we can find, resources to address this. If it's not from the federal government, then it's, if we can go tap philanthropic or other sources of funding to make these happen. The fourth one is affordability. As internet service gets rolled out and the ISPs connect everybody, we want to make sure that they do it so that there's an affordability option, right? So that's what you might hear about it called Lifeline, or there was a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program, and that helped people get, like, I think it was like $30 off of their internet bill. And that was a really pretty popular service, but that ended because it ran out of money. And then the final one is digital navigators. We feel that, as we emphasize these programs that help community build the skill for them to be active on the, in the digital economy, there's a need for people like digital navigators to help if people have, let's say, trouble or challenges along the way. So these are folks that can get called and they'll be there to help, assist with the questions that you might have. You might think of digital navigators as, in a way, it's like, going to Best Buy and talking to somebody, or even going to the Apple store, and talking to somebody there. But the digital navigators that we're thinking of putting in place would probably reside, that would be their primary function. They may reside, some of them may reside in the libraries. Some of them may be accessible online, but they're there to help answer, your questions about digital, internet. You might have a computing question. So that's another program that we're looking at standing up. And what we try to do also is kind of build all of this on this foundation of Aloha, because, we want to be conscientious of the, kind of the perspective that we're coming at this work with. We got to be real, conscientious of how we approach this, because, we want to approach it with kind of a perspective of empathy, as opposed to, appear condescending, in terms of delivering some of these services. So I think that was another thing that we wanted to make sure we built into this offering. So I wanted to share that with you. That's still our kind of primary focus as we, go into the second half of 2025, and then in 2026, we'll continue to do this. And some of it will obviously kind of depend on what kinds of funding we can arrange to help move our programs forward. Okay. This is a slide on something that, I mentioned that some of our funding in fact, all of our federal funding got cut. And what that impacted was our ability to fund some digital literacy classes and access to devices. But I kind of felt that it was important that we, at least for me, identify some of these community digital hubs that were already in community, and how could I go about helping these digital hubs do more with whatever resources that we could help find. We were not directly able to give them any money, but if there is if there's a way that I could help identify funding resources, or give recommendation on how they might look at putting sort of grant proposals together, I would help do that. And so these community digital hubs were important because they were already in community. They were largely in rural communities and servicing, communities that were oftentimes kind of disenfranchised. So I put this story map together just to kind of give people an idea. So, what are some of the examples of these community digital hubs? And I have a list of these at the end of the slide. The ones that I kind of showcased in this story map This one is out at Waimanalo. It's called Pu'uhonua Waimanalo. The second one is over in Waianae. It's Pu'uhonua Waianae. Both of those were previously homeless communities that were residing. In the Waimanalo case, they were at Makapu'u, and they were able to get some land at the foothills of the Ko'olaus, and so that's where they moved to, and that happened to be the first. That was the first community broadband network that we set up, and that picture of that antenna there is a Wi-Fi transmitter that can help transmit Wi-Fi into the community, and we did that in 2019. Okay, and so this is an example of how we were able to get some philanthropic funding. This was through an organization called the Internet Society, and we helped Internet Society helped to fund the purchase of these equipment. They even helped to fund the first couple of years of the internet service that was paid for, and the ISP that we used was Hawaiian Tel. So it's still in operation, and it's still delivering internet service to the community. So that's an example of, trying to be resourceful and innovative in finding projects and funding to help those projects see the light of day. So that's Waimanalo. In Waianae, we did something very similar. The Waianae folks, this was a community that was kind of homeless out at the boat harbor, and the folks got together, and they actually, through the leadership of a woman by the name of Twinkle Borge and a fellow by the name of James Pakele, who I invited to be a guest speaker to our class. They both were very resourceful and was able to get the business community to donate money for them to buy the land that they are currently on. So they were actually able to buy some land, and over the course of 22, 23, 24, they had to organize not only the purchase of land, but building of some infrastructure like roads and electricity and sewer. And then I was able to help fundraise for an internet connection. And we actually had an internet connection up there, I think back in 2023, might have been even 2022, but there were no people there yet because they were still at the boat harbor. They have since gotten to the phase where they've actually built a bunch of tiny homes. So they're actually moving people from the boat harbor up to this Waianae Mauka parcel. And so now there's now people there. And so we just went up. I was helping James Pakele with reconnecting the internet access that they had. And so now that's back up and running. And that was again funded through various community donations, and the Internet Society was also involved with that. So that's another example. And then the other three that are on this story map. One is out in Hau'ula. That's another community that's come together to build kind of a resilience hub. Another one is out in Puna on the Big Island, and so I showcase that one. And then the fifth one that's on the story map is something called a community resource center, and that's located in Kaupo. So I'm sure you guys know where Kaupo is, right? So that's on Maui, on the south slope of Haleakala. And if you look it up, it's pretty far from, it's kind of in the middle between Hana and Kula. So it's pretty remote. It's pretty remote. So those are examples of these community digital hubs. And I'm kind of working on those to make sure that if there's any resources that I can help bring to the table, so that they can then take those resources and help benefit their community. That's that's another one of my objectives here. Okay. This one is something that I wanted to check out, and part of it was because the federal government kind of abandoned us because they terminated our program. And what that kind of gave me was a feeling like, well, I don't know, the federal government really doesn't support this effort, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna give up. I wanted to find out, like, who else is out there doing this kind of work in this sort of equity and inclusion space. And kind of what happened was I happened onto a couple of conferences that were coming up, and this was one of them. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, but it's far away, and I'm gonna have to pay for it myself. So I did, muster up the expenses to fly to Geneva and attend this conference called the World Summit on the Information Society. And part of the reason why I wanted to go and why I'm sharing this with you all is that I feel sometimes we in Hawaii have a somewhat isolated view of what it is that we do and the role that we play, in the larger sort of international space. And what was kind of reassuring was the fact that a lot of people that were at this summit were countries, that were very interested in how do they move down this broadband and equity timeline, and how do they make their residents, their citizens, accessible to this technology. And when hearing about some of those challenges, we're in Hawaii, we're in a developed country, but a lot of the work that I do are reflective of some of the developing countries that are out there. So a lot of these rural communities, in a way, whether it's out in Kaupo or out in Puna or even out in Waianae, right? They're like a little microcosm of a developing country, and it was kind of reassuring to hear that, at the United Nations level, at these national discussions, they all feel very strongly that the internet is an important resource, and it has to be made available for their citizens to be able to take advantage of. So I wanted to go to this and kind of get a sense as to not only a reinforcement of the work that we do, but it helped me to ask the question of myself: how do we in Hawaii participate at this international level, and how can we bring our voice to the table? And so one of the things that I am also involved in is trying to see if there's a way to elevate this kind of activity, so that it's more than just how do we do it in our communities, whether it be Kalihi or Waimanalo or Waianae, but how do we take lessons learned from those communities and help elevate the voice and the accomplishment, so that potentially other developing countries could benefit. And in that effort, is there a way that I could perhaps bring some of the Pacific Island communities along with us? And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to go check out this World Summit on the Information Society. And there's a couple of organizations that are key to that. And I think, let's see. One of them, I didn't show it on this particular slide, but I'll drop a link in the chat when I'm powered with this. But another conference that took place just about I think maybe 2 weeks before this one was put on by a group called the Internet Governance Forum, and I met those folks over at Geneva, and I asked them to be a part of a couple of presentations that I'm going to be doing here. And so they actually joined me on the radio to talk about what the Internet Governance Forum does. And then I'm putting on this information briefing that's taking place on Tuesday, September 9th. There's still a couple of spots open, so if any of you are interested in attending that, that's going to be another example of an opportunity to maybe get some extra credit. But it'll be a good chance to hear, what's happening kind of at the international level, in this particular field. And yeah, it's just another way of kind of expanding our understanding of, what's happening beyond Hawaii. So it's kind of, going to that slogan, it's like think global, act local. So think global. How do we take what we are doing and think of it from a global perspective? But how do we actually do stuff that benefits our local communities? So that's the think global, act local. Okay. I just wanted to bring the attention of the University of Hawaii's broadband office. It's at the ITS building, and we work with them quite closely. They are definitely involved in a big way to help get something called the BEAD program implemented, and that's what I was mentioning earlier about the broadband hui, and we're going to be talking about this BEAD program. BEAD stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, and we're going to be talking about that on the 3rd of September. So if any of you are interested, this is the UH broadband office. We're going to be, I'm going to give them time on our broadband hui, and they're going to go into some detail as to what is the BEAD program, what is this final proposal, what does the final proposal mean, what kind of projects are going to actually get funded to be built, as a result of the BEAD final proposal. So that's kind of what they're going to go through on the 3rd, and also on the following 17th. So we meet every first and third Wednesday of the month. So those are the two. So if you guys are interested in that, it happens to be at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I'm sure that all of you are in class, so it might be hard to check out. But if you are interested, I certainly want to make it available to you. Okay. Now, this is some of the links, and I'm gonna upload this presentation to the resources page. Okay. So you guys can go take a look at it. And if there's anything that's of interest to you that you might want to check out, I highly encourage it. And if you do so, go so far as to have some interest in it and want to participate, I'll certainly give you some extra credit points that could apply toward your, cumulative 300-point goal that you have to get to in order to, get the corresponding grade for this particular class. Yeah. So any questions about this? Let me stop sharing here. And let me also drop the information briefing that I just mentioned. Let's see, where is that? If you're interested in the story map that I talked about, with the community digital hubs, here's the link to that. And then let me look for the link. So, are you guys familiar with something called Honolulu Tech Week? So here's Honolulu Tech Week, and if you scroll down, and I'll drop the link in the chat anyway. But if you scroll down, there's something called the Internet Governance Forum. Takes place on the 9th of September at 4 o'clock. You folks are more than welcome to check that out. There's another opportunity for some extra credit, and it'll give you another perspective of the work that I just talked about, and how it kind of the perspective from an international viewpoint. This will take place at an office in kind of close to Ala Moana Center. It's the Picture Building. Now, we don't have a whole lot of seats. Now, I made it available for like 20 seats. I think we're up to 15. But if you are interested but can't get out there, I'm going to make a Zoom link also available for this particular event by the Internet Governance Forum. So, if you're interested in checking that out, again, let me know, and then I can share that link with you. So those are some things that I'm involved in, and it helps to kind of give you an idea as to where I'm coming from, and how I got asked to kind of teach this class. Because again, computer mediated communication, I look at it like it's anything that could enable your communications over the electronic medium. And this electronic medium could be anything from, as traditional as a voice telephone call to, email to each other. And then over the years, I mean, it's gotten so much more, not only complicated, but there's so much more options to consider. And over the course of the class, we'll get into some of that. The class isn't as as focused on the variety of different platforms that are out there. But I'm more than happy to talk about whatever I know, and I'm sure I could learn something from you guys, in terms of what new platforms you might be most interested in. But the book, as it progresses through the chapters, really looks at how do you go about analyzing, kind of almost from maybe a research standpoint, the features of some of these platforms, whether it's the features out of Zoom, or the features in Facebook, or the features out of Instagram. How do you assess those, and how does that enable fruitful communications? So that's kind of the nature of what we'll be talking about when it comes to the actual book. And then that's going to be the Tuesdays, and then on the Thursdays, I'll feature a guest speaker, and the guest speaker can kind of talk about anything that might be pertinent about how they might use the tools. But I thought what would be really interesting for you all is for them to give you a perspective of what they do, and in the discussion about what they do, you'll kind of get a sense as to how this technology has impacted what it is they do. So as I mentioned, I'm going to have James Pakele, who's part of the Pu'uhonua Waianae group, and I think he's got a really great story. I also will have Brandon Maka'avaava from Nation of Hawaii, and he'll join us for an upcoming week. Next week, Thursday, is Stacy Aldridge, and she's the state librarian. And as you all probably realize, libraries are an interesting institution, right? It's something that was born out of the need to be in communities and make books available. But given the internet, where many of the books are sort of available, or even the content might be available, the question becomes, what's the role that libraries can play in community? And so I think Stacy will provide a really interesting presentation about that. I had her on last year, and it was very well received. Another one that I'll have coming up in October is a classmate of mine from Ilani. His name is Guy Kawasaki, and so I reached out to him because I got an email from UH saying, hey, you want to schedule Guy for a guest speaker spot? And I said, shoots, man, I'll get a hold of him. And I texted him because I got his number, and he got back right away. He said, yeah, sure. When's your class? So we locked down the date of October 23rd. And so you guys can be pleasantly surprised to hear from Guy, because he's a real dynamic and entertaining speaker. I've always found that his talks are not only insightful, but they're kind of sometimes a little provocative, but then also very insightful, in terms of the startup world, the entrepreneur world, the world of innovation. And now he's getting pretty into the whole content creation. And I think what I asked him to talk about was they gave us some suggestions, but I suggested that the topic was AI and creativity. But I asked him, hey, can you talk about AI, and you can throw creativity in there somewhere, but AI and communications. So that's kind of what he's going to talk about. So I think that would be kind of cool. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to wind down pretty soon. Like I said, I'll put the presentation up on in resources. Yeah. Hopefully my recording will be successfully recorded, and I'll put the recording up. There have been some students that have said that they couldn't make it, so I've instructed them to take a look at the recording. And then I don't know, you guys have you played around with Read AI? I can also put the Read AI summary up on the resources. If you want to read through that, Read AI is pretty good. What it does is it transcribes everything that I've said, and then provides like a summary, so that you guys can kind of like have some cliff notes to read through. Hey, looks like that guy Steve, the book I would fall asleep. That's a good thing about having the camera on. You can tell when the guys pass out. Okay. Anyway, I guess she's offering us some entertainment. Any questions before we wind down and let you go for the the long weekend? Now we got a long weekend, but you got the reading to do. You can read the chapter. We're gonna go into chapter 1. Chapter 1. What is chapter 1? Yeah, chapter 1 is called media richness, and we'll go through that on Tuesday. Yeah, and then be sure you check out Lamaku, and if you got any questions, let me know, and I can help ease the pain of adopting that new platform. And then again, Cognella, make sure that you are able to order the book, and then you get the code. Like I said earlier, I'm seeing more names being populated on the Cognella site, so that's a good thing. And that's where the quizzes are going to be. Let's see. Yeah, so Guy, he graduated 1 year before me, so he's a 72 grad, and he's the same year as the kind Mufi Hanneman.
I just have a question. So you said there's questions to answer. Is that once we get the textbook, then
No. The question you have to answer is the one in discussions.
Oh,
So you
okay.
go to Lamaku, it's in discussions. And the only reason I want you to answer that question is because that's the way I can help verify that you are part of this class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Other than that, the quiz that's going to be associated with chapter 1 is not going to be due until the following, like the following week, which is, so what is this? So our class is going to be on the 2nd, right? And so that particular quiz isn't going to be due till like the Tuesday the 9th. Yeah. So there's nothing really to, there's no graded thing over the weekend, but I do encourage you to read the discussion, read the article, do the discussion question, and then there is a speaker survey, okay? And I'm just trying to get you all used to, my sequence of things that I'm going to kind of grade upon. So the things I'm going to grade upon are quizzes, right? Speaker survey. There's this participation, right? How you guys participate. So those are going to be the primary point getters. But for this week, the speaker survey is just, share with me your LinkedIn profile and maybe your favorite, like social media platform. But I'm not, like grading that or anything. But I do encourage you to do that so that, I can get to know you a little better. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I appreciate all you guys, being attentive and staying awake. I'll see you all next week. What is this? Next week, Tuesday, the long weekend. I'm happy that the university won the football game, but I gotta tell you, I went to Stanford too, so I was a little bummed about that. Anyway, I'll see you guys. Mahalo for joining me.
Thank
See you guys next week. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you.
Aloha.
I had sent you an email because I was actually on a flight on Tuesday, so I couldn't attend.
Yeah.
I had joined for like 2 minutes and then the flight started taking off, so I lost connection. But
Oh, okay.
is there a recorded version of that Zoom that I could watch?
No, because I had technical difficulty on Tuesday, and it was kind of a little disastrous because I couldn't record. In fact, I'm trying to look for where I can stop the recording for this one, but it looks like it might have already stopped.
It says it's still recording. It might be in like the top.
Oh, okay. I'm
But
gonna stop recording.